So I, for one, and I would guess the audience that's here live with us and also online, have experienced pushback and resistance sometimes when we approach HR or our leaders on the very concept of value-based leaders and how they set the tone for integrity in the workplace. So when presenting this idea of including value-based content in manager training or asking integrity questions in interviews, the typical answer is thanks, but no thanks. So why do you think that is, Professor?
Well, I think it's short-sighted. and I think there's two cases to be made for the importance, or what I call the value of values. Why do we care? Why do we care about ethics? I think there's a really good regulatory case and a good business case. For regulatory, we've already talked about the ECCP, what the Department of Justice has come out with. And when I looked at it, they have 252 questions they ask. That's almost as many questions as you get on 5 nights of Jeopardy. So it is inclusive. But in addition to that, HHS OIG says it's really important. Corporate culture is incredibly important. The federal sentencing guidelines talk about the importance of developing a corporate culture, an ethical culture, and a commitment to compliance with the law. The PCAOB talks about accounting firms and how important it is for accounting firms to focus on the corporate culture that they have, because it really improves audit quality. So there's a lot of really good regulatory reasons why we should be concerned about that. But in addition to that, there's a great business case to be made. Gallup has done some really interesting work on this, and they said people who work in an ethical, or believe they work in an ethical culture, are 4.3 times more engaged in the workplace. And you can divide engaged employees into 3 different categories. There's the engaged, and engagement is when you use your discretionary energy to advance the interests of the organization. The disengaged. The disengaged are the kind of quiet quitters. They do just enough to not get fired. And then there's the actively disengaged. They hate the organization. They want to poison the well. And so the way it breaks out is approximately 30% of employees are engaged, 50% are disengaged, and 20% are actively disengaged. And Gallup came out with some really good studies on this. The disengaged and actively disengaged employees can cost organizations in the United States between $450 to $550 billion per year. You know, imagine you're on a customer service call. You got a problem with your iPhone, or you have a problem, and the representative there is not being helpful. In fact, he or she is bemoaning the company and talking about how horrible they are. And do you ever want to do business with that company again? They've lost a valuable client. So, as I said, Ellen, I think it's short-sighted. I think that when people say, well, I don't care about, ethics or integrity, all these sort of things, it's just making the money. That's what we're concerned about.